Hello and welcome to the third of InKind Direct Speaker Series events. I'm Charlotte, Head of Charity Partnerships here, and I'm your host for the next hour. We've got a great panel of speakers with us and they'll be sharing their insights from this year and also how we can be preparing for a very different Christmas. So the title of this event is Gifting with Purpose, and that's central to what we do here at InKind Direct. So we connect manufacturers and retailers with products to donate to the people that need them, and that's through an incredible network of thousands of local charities, community groups, food banks and schools. We believe everyone deserves access to life's essentials and that no usable product should be going to waste. So Gifting with Purpose for us is recognising the real value of the products we distribute. So that's toiletries, hand wash, clothing, nappies, toys, period products and cleaning supplies. It's about giving people their dignity, their confidence, their well-being and a little bit of joy, as well as saving money for both the charities we're working with and the families and the individuals that they're supporting. The huge generosity of our corporate partners that we've seen this year has helped us close that gap between what people need and what they can afford. So earlier this month, we launched our impact report, which explains a lot more about what we do. So I'd really suggest you check that out on our website later. And next month, we're going to be launching our Christmas campaign, which is going to be focusing on those most needed products as Christmas approaches. And that's based on what we've been told by our network is really needed. So now I'm going to introduce you to our great speakers. We've got Martin Newman with us, and he's the consumer champion and founder of the Customer First Group and Customer Service Action. For over 35 years, he's fought for consumer rights to bring positive change for brands, and we're delighted that he's a trustee with us here at InKind Direct as well. We've also got Deborah Alcock-Tyler, and she's been Chief Executive of Directory of Social Change for almost 20 years. She co-founded the Small Charities Coalition, is a trustee for Berkshire Community Foundation, and also with us here at InKind Direct. And we've got Owen Griffin. He's Head of Planning for L'Oreal. We've worked with L'Oreal for over 20 years and they've donated a huge range of products to us over that time. And they're also working with us for our Christmas campaign this year. So a quick note on some housekeeping before we get going with the first question. We're going to be running a bit of a panel discussion with questions out to each person, and then we've got a live Q&A at the end. So throughout this conversation, if you've got a question you want to ask, please put it into the Q&A chat section, and if you can indicate which speaker it's for, that'd be fantastic, and I'll do my best to get through them after we've run through our questions. So the first question, which I'm going to put to each of the speakers, is obviously we've all been experiencing the pandemic on a very personal level as well as professional level, and each of you is coming at this from a different perspective. So for all of you, firstly, please do tell us a little bit more about yourselves, but also what's the main impact you've been seeing this year from the pandemic? And I'm going to put that to Martin first.
Thank you very much, Claire. Thanks for sorry, Charlotte, I should say. Thanks for having me on. I'm looking at myself and I'm on as Claire Rowe. So I've had some technical issues this morning. I am definitely Martin Newman and not Claire Rowe, but I've probably been called worse. Anyway, thanks for having me on. I'm delighted to be here. Yes, I'm obviously involved as a trustee with the charity. I'm also the non-executive chairman of the retail arm of the Scouts. I run a business called Customer Service Action, but I come from the client side as well. So I spent many years running online and multi-channel operations for a host of brands, including Burberry, Ted Baker, Harrods and Pentland brands. And so I've got pretty good insight, both from a consumer perspective and obviously from a business perspective. From a consumer perspective, clearly consumer confidence is going to be and has been badly affected by everything we've gone through over the last 7 or 8 months. I'm a glass half full man, and I do have a positive outlook for what I think is going to happen, which I'll talk a little bit about later. But clearly the reality is some people losing jobs. There's a lot of uncertainty about what's going to happen as a result of the pandemic. When's the pandemic going to leave us, and what's the impact going to be on all of us? And that sort of consumer impact leads to a lack of confidence. That lack of confidence leads to consumers generally spending less and saving a bit more. So you see the amount being saved increasing and the amount being spent sort of decreasing a bit. Saying that, I do think it's going to be a very buoyant Christmas, and I shall also talk about that in a little bit. So I think from a consumer point of view, it's all about what customers are buying, where they're buying, and how they're buying, and just some of the impact has been, for example, consumers are not buying formal wear because we're not going into in Maine, we're not going to the office, we're not going to weddings, we're not going to bar mitzvahs, we're not going to funerals, we're not going to pop concerts, and as a result, we haven't had the need to dress up the way that we would do. So where formal wear has struggled, loungewear as a category has done really well. The younger consumers have been more impacted, I think, by this than somebody of my age, in my mid-50s, and I know because I have 2 Gen Zs at home. They won't go into a changing room in a fashion retailer anytime soon because they're worried about who might have been in there before them. So there's lots of practical implications in terms of our customer journey and how we feel about this and how that will relate to how we shop in the future. Plus, we're also working from home more now, and that's going to be, some of that's going to be a permanent change. Working from home means shopping more locally, and of course it's also seen a huge spike in online sales. So e-commerce is now 26% of total retail, whereas prior to the pandemic it was 19%. So those are some of the trends essentially that and some of the impacts on consumers we're seeing of late.
Brilliant, thank you, Martin. I think that's really insightful, as you say, that the direct interaction between behaviour and how that's actually affecting what people are spending. So going over to Deborah now with the same question on what the key impacts you've been seeing.
Hi everyone, really nice to be here. So my charity Directory of Social Change basically serves other charities. We're not a membership body. What we do is we work with charities to help them to be the best they can be. So anything at all to do with fundraising, law, volunteer management, anything like that is what we do. So we work with literally thousands and thousands of charities every year. And one of the things we've been doing since the pandemic is working with a whole load of other infrastructure bodies to try and get a grip on what's happening to our sector in relation to the pandemic and what, if anything, we can do about it. And I've got to be honest, it's absolutely brutal. It's brutal. I mean, we have just talking about the impact on services. If you think about charities, part of the problem we have is that our government tends to think that charities are like organisations like any other, and if you lose a job in a charity, it's just another job. You know, not just another job, because they clearly do care about jobs, and it's just another job that somebody needs some support to like earn money and pay their rent. But actually, those of us who work in charities know that the charity jobs don't matter. We don't care about charity jobs. What matters is that every single one of those jobs that gets lost in our sector has a disproportionate, exponentially huge impact on services and people that we provide services to. So we've already lost in our sector. So bearing in mind, we only employ about 850,000, 900,000 people. We've already lost 22,000 jobs. Almost half of people are actually in furlough at the moment, and there are now all coming out of furlough, and by the end of this year the minimum expectation is that another 60,000 will have lost their jobs. Now, so people lose their jobs, so what? The point about this is these are service delivery jobs. So these are people who are providing services to people who are homeless, with addictions, who require counselling, who are going through grief and trauma and suffering. And we are failing miserably to make the case to the government that, you know, the money into the sector is not about saving jobs. It's about saving people's lives, literally. It's about saving services. It's about human beings and citizens out there. We are facing between a 10.1 and 12.4 billion shortfall. Some arguments about which of those figures are, but it is massive in terms of our sector. Between now and we've already lost about 4.3 billion, and it's going to be up to about 12.1 or so by the end of this year. All of that money represents people who are going to be in trouble. People are literally not going to be able to telephone somebody and say, I'm in trouble, I'm feeling suicidal, please help me, talk me off the ledge. People are literally not going to be able to access a support service that stops us picking up that bottle or picking up that syringe. It's literally people who are absolutely in agony of grief around the fact they've lost someone to COVID or to cancer or to some other thing. So I have to be brutal. It is awful. And I want to be able to say there are lights at the end of the tunnel, but I've got to be absolutely honest and say to you right now, it just doesn't feel like it. The government doesn't hear it. It doesn't understand about the impact that our sector has. So, I mean, I can talk, of course, you know, about things that we're going to do, and I will do later. So I don't want people to be like, you know, well, Charlotte told me this could be group therapy. I'm just getting this all off my chest. You know, it's really shit. Let's all give up. Actually, I don't think that, because, of course, there are many, many things that charities are doing. And one thing I can say is that we're collaborating in a way that it's unprecedented. We've not seen it before. But the truth is, it just isn't enough. And I think we have to be brutally open and honest about that and not sweep that under the carpet. So that's my cheery input to the morning session.
Great. Thank you very much, guys, for having me. My name is, just quick intro, my name is Owen Griffin. I'm the head of planning for the Active Cosmetics division in L'Oreal. I've been working with Maya and the InKind Direct team for a number of years now on the product donation side. in order to help distribute basically our products to the fantastic network of charities that InKind Direct work with. So from a retail perspective, I think it's pretty much everybody is experiencing it and seeing it on a day-to-day basis. It's pretty much very much in line with the update from a consumer and charity perspective that Martin and Deborah brought you through. But the most significant impact is basically obviously the high street. Okay, so a very difficult situation, irrespective. I mean, prior to the pandemic. But then it's really I suppose not made it any easier with the closures due to the government restrictions for in Q2 and Q3. What we've noticed from a L'Oreal point of view is the acceleration from the high street, the consumer shift from a high street to online, and that for some of our brands, that basically we've already achieved that acceleration and that shift that we would have anticipated would have taken 8 to 10 years, and that happened in the last 6 months. So that is clearly something which the high street, it's an additional challenge now that the high street will have to contend with. That consumers have migrated. Will they stay there or will they come back to the high street? Time will tell. In terms of the product mix, so and from a category perspective, what we have seen significant increases in demand for our skincare brands. So, for example, the likes of La Roche-Posay and CeraVe. That said, that's good news on that side. That said, some of our customers were some of the most heavily impacted by the government restrictions. So salons and spas only reopened in mid-August. Because obviously there's facial treatments and things like that they're the highest risk in terms of infection rates. So clearly not an easy time for those SMEs. From a L'Oreal perspective, in order to help do our bit, in mid-April, basically the company announced a solidarity program, pandemic solidarity program, to help support these SMEs in their most difficult time. So all payments were frozen until they were back up and running. So that's just one measure that the company took to help do our bit. Also then from a work and supply chain, so it would be remiss of me to not mention also on the supply side, because there's a huge disruption to the supply chain when obviously there's closure and there's a lack of demand, which obviously there was complete disruption in that respect. We saw all the examples on the news, but also then on the supply side, the company chose as part of the same solidarity program to freeze payment terms, to shorten payment terms in order to tie companies over, or suppliers over during that time as well. So all in all, a challenging time from end to end on the retail side.
Brilliant, thank you. Thanks, Deborah and Owen. I mean, I think I have to say, as someone listening to that alongside everyone else, for that one question to get 3 such amazing and very different responses, but there's common threads running across all of them. And I think certainly for me in the role that I play here at InKind Direct, is you start to very quickly realise that the people that charities are supporting, the people that these products are going to, are not different to the people who are being furloughed, to the people who are shopping in those shops and spending their wages. People are all people, and the impact that this crisis is having on society is affecting lots of different levels. And just pulling out the threads of those 3 answers, thinking about how everyone's confidence has been hit, the value of the charity sector in quite literally saving lives every day, and the role that companies like L'Oreal are playing, not just to support themselves, but to support SMEs and other organisations and try and build that confidence back up. It is really inspirational. And I think it's a really good point for me to move across and ask Martin a direct question, which is, and again, as you said, you're a glass half full person, Martin. So well-being and financial stability, as we've just heard, have been rocked this year for most people. Some people are going to be seeing Christmas as a light at the end of the tunnel. Some people are going to be seeing it as just another hurdle to overcome to get to the end of the year. So what advice can you share for as we approach the end of this year with a bit of hope?
Sure. Well, I mean, first of all, I actually think it's going to be a very buoyant Christmas period, or peak trading as we call it in retail. So I think from Black Friday right the way through, I actually think it's going to be fairly buoyant. And I think that some of the drivers for that are, despite the fact that obviously we've unfortunately had a big uptick in unemployment and the concerns that I spoke about earlier that consumers have about the future, which has led to an increase in saving. I think that Christmas will, to some extent, see the reverse of that, particularly because we're not able to share Christmases with our families in the way that we would have done previously. I think that gifting is going to over-index over the Christmas period. I think we will compensate for our inability to share Christmas with our friends, family and loved ones the way we would normally do by over-indexing on gifts. So I think from a retail point of view, it'll be buoyant. And I think from a consumer perspective, let's be honest, we're all looking for a bit of a pick-me-up. So retail therapy, I think, will kick in. And I think that we will see, where we can, more and more consumers going into the stores to have that retail therapy, to experience it, as well as the continued uptick online that we've been talking about, that Owen mentioned as well. So I think it's going to be buoyant. I think it will cheer us up a little bit. I'm not sure how the land will lie after Christmas, but we'll maybe talk about that afterwards. I think that from a retail perspective, if I were in retail, I think the key is making sure, number one, that we provide a safe shopping experience. So if somebody is coming into the store or they are buying online, that we've thought through the entire customer journey and we've made sure that not only our consumers can feel completely safe when they come into our stores, but that our staff feel completely safe as well and protected with the appropriate level of PPE. So we take that really as a given, but it's still really important to make sure that's in place. I think from a retail perspective, I always say to retailers, you need to be where your customers are. And excuse me, there are empty spaces in the high street. Maybe those empty spaces provide pop-up opportunities for larger brands to create a more local presence. We are staying locally, shopping more locally. Unfortunately, the West End of London and major conurbations of city centres are losing out as a result, but then that could be an opportunity for national retailers to get into more local environments. It's not late to do that, to be opening up a pop-up in High Barnet near where I live, for example. So I think that's important. I think it's really important to make sure that you deliver on your promises, because gifting is going to be significant this Christmas. So being clear on returns policies, how long somebody has, sending out gift receipts with no prices on it. Not everybody wants the people that are the recipients to know how much they've paid, making sure customer service is in place and that they're able to deliver the right level of service and experience. I often talk about retail as a service, and I think it's a great opportunity to think about how do you move from just selling stuff to being a service provider. So if I were in the DIY sector, if I were in the electrical sector, I'd be thinking about not only selling something, but offering the opportunity to install it, offering the opportunity to build that fence, to install that audio system or whatever it happens to be. So I think retailers need to make a shift in that sense. A few little tactical things. I mean, I buy from a Swedish brand called CDLP. I made my first purchase. I don't know if you can see this or not, but basically I got a little handwritten card. Dear Martin, here's a 10% offer off your next purchase, which was a really nice touch. I recently bought some jeans online from Levi's, and then this came in the post. And you'll see on the inside it is actually a Levi's branded face mask. So there's lots of little nice touches that retailers and brands can do to encourage customers to come back, and even more so as a lot of people buying over the Christmas period are going to be gift buyers. So what can you do to encourage them to come back to be a customer of yours next year when they might actually be buying for someone else at the moment? And just to finish on two things, I think that national retailers need to behave more like independent retailers. When you go into an independent store, you get great service. It's often very personalised. They know who you are. They know what you like. And it's a bit of an Aladdin's cave. And I think we've lost a lot of that in our national retail chains, where the proposition is too ubiquitous, it's too homogenous. And I know this because I interview thousands of consumers and they tell me this. And the final thing I want to finish off with is I'm pretty sure that by February or March next year, we're going to be back to some old normal with a little bit of the new normal that we're going through now. But I do see green shoots, and I think we're going to come out of this, and I think it's going to be early next year. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a rocket scientist. It's probably as much an instinct as anything else.
Yeah, thank you, Martin. I mean, you covered an awful lot of ground there. I think the key thing for me, when I think about how that relates to InKind Direct in particular, and to people we're working with, is, as you say, that the idea of gifting increasing, the idea that need to show care and to give that care and affection to other people through products is only going to increase. Exactly. Which for us, when I think about the communities and the people that we're working with, that means the need for those kinds of products, and not just the hand wash, the toilet roll and the laundry supplies, but also those kind of what we think of as treats and things that can bring joy are going to be even more important. So no, that's really helpful. Thank you. And I think that's a great insight for any retailers we've got listening today as well, to hear some of those tips and some really good tactical tips there. Thank you. So I'm going to move us on and ask Deborah a question now. And Deborah, I'm afraid you've stolen my stat from this question entirely. So you may have to repeat yourself a little bit, but I know you've already talked about the huge kind of backdrop of funding changes that we're seeing this year, and the huge drop in funding. And I went for the 12.4 billion figure. Maybe I was making that point and going to the extreme. But we know, and you've touched on, and for anyone listening, we know the charity sector plays a huge role in society in every way we can think of. DSE and Director of Social Change has always championed the need for more support for the sector. And we know that this year, as we say, we're looking at something around a 12 billion shortfall by the end of the year. So what can anyone watching this session today do to ensure that local safety net of charities, community groups and the volunteers who are part of them that so many are relying on isn't lost as we move into next year?
That's a super question, Charlotte. Thank you. And I'm really grateful for the opportunity to talk about that. The very first thing I think I want to say is that Rishi Sunak, our Chancellor, when he was talking about the support packages that he was offering generally across the piece, he talked about the gentleness of charities. And I think that in and of itself exposes the real problem that we have in society, is that people don't really understand what charitable activity is about, what it means and who it affects. The reality is there is not a single human being in this country who has not, is not or will not benefit from the work of a charity. If you have children who play sports, that's charities. If you go out walking, you know, in fresh places, that's the Ramblers Association or it's the National Trust. The air that you breathe, which is clean, is because the British Lung Foundation, a charity, mounted a campaign to sort out clean air. There is literally no aspect of any of our lives, including the Queen. It's got charitable support for you. It's got nothing at all to do with how much money you've got. We have a tendency to think of charities as being about for poor people. Actually, what we don't realise is that there are wealthy people who fall into despair and addiction. There are wealthy people who have disabilities. So I think, so the very first thing I say to everybody listening, try and understand better what charity actually means. It's not a nice to have thing that if we've got a little bit of time or energy, is absolutely fundamental to our way of life in this country. And actually it massively supports the economy. The other thing I would say to remember is that charitable endeavour isn't just about social activities. It's not just about making people feel better or picking them up off the floor or out of the ditch. It's also about the fact that if we are not there doing that, at some point the state will have to pick up the pieces anyway, even if it's only to pay for the funeral. So there's an economic benefit to charities thriving and being there, not just a social benefit. And I think it's really important for people to understand that. So really understand that everybody benefits from the work of charities. And I think if I was to really ask you to, every single person in this audience would be able to say or name a charity that either them or a member of their family has in some way or another been touched by or has been touched or has been served by. So that's the first thing. The second thing is touching really on what Martin was talking about, is about there's also a tendency to think of people in need as being poor and needing beans and bread, you know, and that provided they've got that, that's all they need. And yes, of course, food poverty is a massive problem in our society. Actually, it's been a problem. All that's happened in the pandemic is that the problem has been exacerbated, but we've always had this issue with food poverty, which is shocking and shameful, and that's a discussion for a different time. But the tendency, therefore, is to think that people who are in difficulties don't deserve nice stuff. You know, you'll very often see memes about, you know, why has that person got an iPhone 12 and at the food bank? Why is that woman pushing a posh pram while she's also claiming benefits? And of course, there's this kind of assumption that if you're poor, you've got to live in a hovel. You've got to act poor. You've got to look poor. You mustn't clean yourself properly and stuff like that. And I think we have to get off that paradigm, is that human beings deserve nice stuff. You know, we have a particular charity that we serve at InKind Direct, who I was talking about this, wasn't I, Martin, with colleagues the other day, but where you know, one of the gifts that had been given to us at InKind Direct had been donated was a particularly lovely pram, a really posh state-of-the-art pram, and this was given by one of our charities to one of the people they serve, which was a young single mum who was in real difficulty, you know, homeless and really struggling with 3 kids, and had fallen into kind of this spiral of despair. And she got this pram for her baby, and she used this pram to walk the baby and the kids to school. And the impact of that nice pram on that woman was absolutely phenomenal, which was the feedback we got from the charity, because the first day she went as normal, you know, not really dressing properly and whatever. The second day she went, she was starting to show pride in herself. You know, she had a nice thing. She had more confidence to talk to the other mums, nearly all mums, of course, at the school gates. She had enough confidence because she had a nice thing. So I think we have to get off this thing that people only need beans on toast or they need pasta or sauce. We have to understand that, you know, nice stuff feeds the soul. It's easy to be critical and say, L'Oreal, with your, you know, lovely expensive products, do we need them? Yes, look at the state of my skin, clearly. But the point is, I'm not the only person who needs them. So we have to get off this notion of poor people just getting, you know, scraps. And I have to say that's one of the things I'm most proud of our product donors at InKind Direct, because they do actually mostly get that. They don't just give us like the, you know, the shitty old stuff that anything will do. They do work really hard to try and make sure that there are products coming out to the people that we serve that are going to not just keep them alive, that are going to make them feel good. Because when you feel good about yourself, everything becomes more possible. When you feel that somebody believes in you, or somebody thinks you deserve a really expensive skin cream or a lovely pram or a pair of, you know, expensive trainers, that stuff feeds the soul, and that is just as important as everything else. The other thing I would say is about asking. So I would say if you're a product donor, really think about asking, what do people want? Don't just give the stuff you've got spare or the stuff you think, you know, actually think, is there a way in which you can integrate product giving into your whole sort of business model? Is there a way in which you can think like, you know, we're going to make 50,000 of this. In fact, we'll make 55,000, 5,000. We're going to find a way to donate. I mean, I get your businesses and you've got to run and all the rest of it. I also know about economies of scale and unit prices, you know. Don't just work in charities, I know some of that stuff. So can you consider things like that? And as charities, ask for what you want. We don't just have to be ever so humble like Uriah Heep, you know, and just sort of accept what we're given without coming back and saying, actually, could we have stuff a bit nicer? It's really okay to legitimately ask for what you need. 2 more points to make. The other thing is about cash. You know, if you can give cash, please do. You know, it's the biggest thing at the moment. Most charities are struggling because even if it looks as if they look fairly okay on the balance sheet, that cash not coming in because we can't fundraise, we're not running fundraising events. When we do run them, even digitally, it doesn't work terribly well. You know, we're not really able to ask for money in the way that we were before, and that's a massive problem for cash, which is one of the reasons why we're laying off so many staff and cutting services. So if you can find a way to give cash as well, please do. But also think about volunteering support. Not, you know, we really don't want you to come and paint our scout huts. That's absolutely no use to us whatsoever. But we always say, yes, please come and paint the hut or the office or the whatever, because we hope that will create a relationship. Am I giving away state secrets here? I probably am, Charlotte, aren't I? So when you do a company, say like, we want to do a staff volunteering day, we'll come and clean the garden or whatever. It's a pain in the arse, actually. We accept it because, you know, we want you to get to know us and how important our charities are. The kind of volunteering we need are like financial. We need accountants. We need people with marketing skills. We need people, if we've had to lay off our fundraisers, we need people who come and volunteer to help fundraise. That's the kind of things we need. So think about the kind of volunteering you offer, which is skilled volunteering. You know, it's not all about making your own people feel good. And finally, remember that we're all a few paychecks away from relying on the services that InKind Direct are given. None of us are immune from any of this, and in fact we've seen that with some of our colleagues and stuff. So it's like keeping that sense of like gratitude for ourselves, for those of us who are lucky enough not to be relying on or needing the support of the charities that rely on InKind Direct. There you go.
Thank you, Deborah. That was, yeah, a phenomenal response to that question. Thank you. And I think you've touched on so many of the key points, and I promise I've not bribed you to cover some of those points either. But I think you're absolutely right. I think everyone's been affected. It's about being more specific in both what we ask and what we offer, and recognising that, yeah, ultimately the sector is struggling for cash as well. So anything people can do individually or collectively is going to be very gratefully received. But I think that point about the role that products play and the direct correlation between giving someone something nice and the impact it has on their well-being and their mental health is something that I think a lot of us that are familiar with that concept would just be nodding along thinking, yeah, that's absolutely right. It's borne out in our impact report, as I've mentioned. Go and have a look at it. And it also leads me really neatly on to my next question for Owen as well. So obviously, given the changes you've seen as a manufacturer, Owen, in 2020 and L'Oreal's key aim to share beauty with everyone, I'd love you to tell us what L'Oreal has done to share beauty with everyone this year.
Okay, thanks, Charlotte. I think probably the best example of how L'Oreal has shared beauty with everyone this year is as part of the same solidarity program that I spoke about earlier. L'Oreal committed to supporting all European health authorities with hand sanitizer. Following, we all remember the panic buying of hand sanitizer that led to shortages in the lead up to the first wave, and PPE equipment. So as a result, in a matter of days following that announcement, all production capacity switched from normal production of all of our products to 2 hand sanitizer SKUs that were essentially developed overnight from end to end, from concept to production, a process which normally takes nearly a year. So it really, I mean, it pulled out the stops from in all departments. In a matter of a couple of weeks, then we were taking delivery of nearly 500,000 hand sanitizer products to our distribution centre in Trafford Park, and then I mean that's all well and fine, but then we didn't have the necessary contacts in the NHS and the HSE in the Republic of Ireland to know where this product is required and where this product is needed and where to deliver it to. So that's where Maya and the team at InKind Direct stepped in, and together with a partnership then with Blue Light Card, they managed the distribution of 750,000 products of hand sanitizer, moisturizers, shampoos across to the nearly 70 trusts of the 2 health services, which in the end, from feedback from the team, essentially reached over 500,000 frontline workers. So we didn't quite share beauty with everyone, but we certainly tried to do our best to help the people who needed it the most this year.
Brilliant, thank you, Owen. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. The project we worked with you and with Blue Light Card and other corporates on with supporting NHS workers was a phenomenal part of the summer, and certainly something InKind Direct's really proud of as well. I mean, the 2 things that have come through, I think, in both the answers you've given have been talking about that acceleration in the speed at which people are doing things differently, which is leading to more innovation. And I think that's definitely something that we value working with corporate partners like yourself, is being able to access that innovation and how we can use it and how we can work together so that charities and corporates working together can achieve something more than either of us could be achieving by ourselves. I think that's really important in how we work and something we're really keen to keep doing into next year and beyond. So my last question is going to go to everyone on the panel, and then I'm going to have a look and see what live questions have been coming through for us as well. So my last question is kind of just hopefully ending us on a positive note. So we know this year has been challenging, but we have seen many positives, as we've heard about throughout the last half hour or so, and lots of acts of kindness. So what is the one thing you'd each like to see continue? And can you share some of your thoughts on how we make sure that kindness stays in our decision making as we go into next year? So starting, Martin, if I can ask you to come back to us first.
Sure. Well, I mean, I think one example which Owen just gave there from L'Oreal, I think it's been great, the brands that have actually recognised the importance of their purpose and how they could support the community and how they can support consumers and charities at a time like this, and turning over their manufacturing to create sanitizers is a really great example. I'm an NHS responder, so I pick up phone calls from people, from members of the public around the UK when they just want someone to talk to, and I kept this going. And excuse me, there's a lady called Nancy who lives somewhere in England who called up, and I had a conversation with her, and I said to her, how do you feel if I call you every Friday? And I call her every single Friday. She's an older lady, just to see how she's getting on. Has she been in contact with her kids? Is there anything that she needs? And it's such a small act, but I think it goes a really long way. So hopefully all of us will think about what we can do as individuals to help, never mind what we can do as businesses, and have that kind of community focus and just think about, you know, how we can help everybody. You know, I think that's one positive I would love to come out of this, that we all become slightly better human beings as a result of what we've been through.
Thanks, Martin. Yeah, I can see even just on the screen, I'm looking at lots of nodding faces. So I think you've got our vote there. And over to Deborah as well. Same question to you.
Well, I would say that kindness is the root of our sector anyway. That, you know, the reason charities exist is because human beings look around and think, oh my God, that's a terrible thing that's happening to another human being or to an environment or to an animal, and they come together to try and do something about it. So I think kindness is at the root of what we do. You know, the kindness of product donors, the kindness of individual donors, and so forth. So I would sort of slightly turn it on its head and say, right now, I would argue that as charities, it's not kindness we need, it's activism. You know, what we need is people to actually not just say how lovely we are, but to step up and support us. And we have, our collaboration group has a campaign called the Never More Needed campaign. And this is part of us trying to convince government, but also industry, companies, the sector, you know, the public as a whole, of the incredible importance of charitable activities to society. So I would love it if people would go and have a look at the website www.nmn.org.uk, which stands for Never More Needed #, and see what you can do, because we also need you know, to write to your MPs to talk about the importance of the charitable sector. Bearing in mind, we've only had £750 million out of 12.4, however many it's going to end up being, that we actually need. You know, we really are in dire straits. So write to your MPs. If you know anybody of influence, please be brave enough to say, I came to this seminar and I discovered, to my absolute shock and horror, that, you know, my mum is not going to get the dementia care that she needs because the charities that provide it are running out of money. You know, so you know, go and ask your mates and things like that. But most of all, remember that despite the messages that are coming back at us as charities, you know, from government, and I'd sad to say from Charity Commission, the work we do is absolutely incredible, and we should be proud of it and boast about it. I mean, you know, thank everybody who supports InKind Direct and supports the work we do. But yeah, really, I would say what we need is your activism, actually, to get us through this really gruesome period.
Thank you, Deborah. No, I think that's really inspiring, and yeah, lots of nodding from me there as well. Owen, same question to you.
Yeah, I think very much in line with Martin and Deborah's points. We're going to be feeling the economic impact of this for many years, generations to come, to be honest, as you know, the measures continue to be announced by the government. The cost continues to increase, obviously, which is necessary to do so. What's clear is that the people who are already struggling have been most heavily impacted by this, and with the government job support scheme still in place, you know, for the next 6 months, I think it's still too early to determine the full extent of the impact. So we're not going to see that until mid next year and beyond. Which then, obviously, thinking about the point of the webinar, it makes Christmas even more important, obviously, for those families, and it puts InKind Direct in a unique position to be able to help support those people who need the support the most. I think the exact same point as Martin made, in terms of kindness needs to remain at the heart of what we do, both as individuals but as organizations. We need to actively do it. I fully agree, Deborah. But yeah, I think there's a genuine shift that I've seen in the last 6 months, where there is a level of care that you can see that people are taking and have for just their neighbours across the road, for people who are struggling. And yeah, I think that is something that needs to continue and increase, something that we should learn from this experience. From an organizational perspective, L'Oreal has a clear sustainability commitment set out in a program called L'Oreal for the Future, and its collaborations with InKind Direct that will play a major part in this. So looking ahead, we're keen to continue to build on our strong partnership with InKind Direct, and I'd encourage other organizations, other companies to do the same.
Brilliant, thank you, Owen. I'm going to kind of bring out our kind of formal questions section to the close now, and just a huge thank you from me. And I've seen some of the comments coming through on the live chat. The passion and the knowledge that our speakers have spoken with today, I think we're all incredibly grateful they've given up their time to talk to us about such an important topic. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move on and have a look at some of the Q&As that have come through. Thank you very much to everyone who's indicated who the question is directed at. That makes my life an awful lot easier. So I'm going to start with a question from Martin, and the question we've got is, do you think we'll see more of the big retailers incorporating charitable giving as part of their Christmas campaigns and shouting about it more?
Good question. If I'm going to answer that completely candidly, I'm not sure. I definitely think that we should, and I hope that we will. And I think that from a brand perspective, I think it's the right thing to do, and it's a good opportunity to demonstrate, that a business has a clear purpose and a sense of responsibility to more than just its shareholders, in terms of what it does for its community and what it does for charities, and what it can be doing to support them. So I would say, not sure whether more are going to be doing it, but I would absolutely say it's the right thing to do, and I would encourage as many brands as possible to get behind that, because I think it's also something that will really resonate very much with consumers, and it's obviously touching on something that we're all, we all have a high degree of awareness and sensitivity to at this particular moment in time.
Brilliant. Yeah, thank you. Absolutely agree. And I think, we all appreciate the candour, and are hoping to see that the smallest gap possible between what we want to see and what we'll actually see. Completely agree. A question for Owen that's come through. So how important is it for L'Oreal to include charitable work as part of your overall brand strategy?
It's extremely important, to be honest, Charlotte. So I'm not sure if anyone will be aware, but essentially we have Citizens Day, which is a great initiative that the whole L'Oreal UKI take part in. So that's 5,000 employees, whereby you have one day up to you of how you spend it, but it's something to give back to the community. Okay, so that is in terms of the company's commitment to giving back to charities and giving back to communities. That's their commitment, which is extremely successful. So we've had different initiatives down through the years, whereby we've worked with children's charities. We've worked with different local councils and local communities. So it's extremely important.
Brilliant, thank you, and that's great to hear. And I think you've touched on a really important point as well, which I think I'd like to convey to any companies or retailers that are listening, is InKind Direct works with a network of thousands of local causes, charities, community groups, but that's in no way to supplant the work that a lot of manufacturers and retailers do close to home and nearby, particularly nearby their warehouses or where their main staff are based. And we've seen some fantastic examples, and as Owen's just talked about, there's a real easy balance to be struck between, if you've got a particular product that maybe can help lots of people, or a truckload of a single product, versus that local support that you're doing within your own communities, absolutely sit alongside each other really well. So it's really great to hear about L'Oreal's kind of wider charitable work beyond the great work it does with us here. So another question now for Deborah. I think you've touched on some of this already, and it's a very broad question, so I'm going to let you run with it. It's, what is the main challenge for charities looking ahead to next year?
Survival, actually, pure and simply. It's, there's been real fear amongst trustees, because trustees carry so much legal and fiduciary responsibility and accountability for charities. It can be very frightening when we're in this particular situation. And I think what a lot of trustees have done is got a bit scared and thought, well, we're going to have to close down, and stop, we've got to pay people off and all the rest of it. And I don't think that's the right way forward, actually. I think, shrinking is okay. Size is not what counts in our sector. It's about the impact, it's about what you deliver. And so I sort of worry about that, really. Although I do have to say, actually, that although the government mostly has really, really not treated the sector well, the Lords are always fighting our case. They do tend to get it better I don't know why, but they do seem to. And one of the recent successes we've had is that the changes to the Corporate and Insolvency Act, Companies in Insolvency Act, means that, whereas before if you had a really dire cash situation and you were really worried that you weren't going to be able to meet your creditors' bills in the coming months, typically you would then have to probably declare yourself insolvent. What they've done is change the rules around that, so you don't have to rush to declare insolvency. If you generally think you've got an opportunity in a few months' time of coming out the other end and generating the cash that you need. So it's almost like I won't go into the details of the ins and outs, but in summary, it's almost like a moratorium, really. It means your creditors can't sue you or can't come after you if you continue trading, even when you don't currently have the cash, in the hopes that you will. And I think that has been a very sensible approach, actually, from the government, recognising that people, if you give people breathing space, they can get through the hump, possibly. So, so I do think, I think the main thing is, there's this, without hope, the situation is hopeless, and that's where I'm 100% with Martin. We will get through this. What we mustn't do is give up, and also not rush to make decisions now based on the circumstances of now that affect the future in the long term. I'm laughing to myself now, right back at the beginning of this pandemic, sort of back in March and April and sort of early May, when everybody was not being in their offices anymore. You saw loads of stuff about, we've suddenly realised revolution, we don't need offices, everybody can work from home, this is the answer for the future. And I've seen a massive change that now really saying, I want my office back, get me out of this room with these people who I know I married and I gave birth to, but I really can't stand the sight of it anymore. So I think we have to be really careful about not taking decisions now because of the circumstances we're in right now, which might actually limit our ability to move forward in the future. So it's hard to do, but I think hanging on to being calm and knowing this will not be like this forever. Presidents serve short terms, governments come and go, viruses ultimately do disappear or something happens with them. Let's not give up hope. It will be all right in the end. And if it's not all right, it's not the end.
Thank you, Deborah. And I think I absolutely agree with what you're saying. And I think that's just when you're talking about the Insolvency Act as well. I think that's a key role for organisations like Directory of Social Change to be that translator. And I think, and not just within the charity sector, but a lot of organisations don't know what they don't know. So having organisations like Directory of Social Change who can break down that information, translate it and show how it can be applied in situations like this, where I can imagine that act probably isn't top of people's list in how to deal with a pandemic, but actually it's really practical support that's going to help make the difference. So I really appreciate that. Thank you. I think we've got time for one last question. So I'm just having a look through the list. I'm going to throw this last one to Martin, if I can. Questions coming saying, how can retailers balance their own challenges that they're going through at the moment with supporting the people that they rely on to shop with them?
That's a really good question. Look, everybody, there isn't a single business out there that hasn't got, hasn't been in the recovery room or maybe even on life support. Everyone's had to go through a huge amount in an incredibly short space of time and pivot and work out what they need to do to be relevant. But I always come back, if you want to still be there in the future, then obviously you have to put your customers first. And I think that too many businesses today still treat customer service, believe it or not, as a cost centre and not as a profit centre. In other words, we treat customers as a cost and the cost to serve them rather than the benefit of customers, which is why we have a very short-term approach generally, even from a marketing point of view. All the effort goes in bringing customers in the door, what we call the top of the funnel, and not enough on retaining them and giving them reasons to come back. And to do that successfully, you have to tick lots of boxes, and that includes these days having a purpose. Proving you're doing something about social responsibility, the way Owen talked about earlier with L'Oreal. All these things are important, just as serving customers and giving them the right experience. So it is a challenge because they've got lots of things to deal with in their own business, furloughed staff coming back, many have had to make redundancies, they've got to close stores. But at the end of the day, if you don't have customers coming into your store and coming online, you don't have a business. So to my mind, that's always the start and the end, really, for that question.